It is not okay to link 9/11 trutherism with the lies we were told about COVID. That makes Vivek the liar. That takes it makes him the bad guy as opposed to the people who actually are telling the lies. And it can be confusing to Americans who are hearing this nonsense. There is a faction of the Republican Party right now that's gotten very conspiratorial. There is. And it's not the people who believe Fauci lied and the CDC lied and, the FBI is not fair and the DOJ misleads. It's not those people. There is a faction that goes down a dark rabbit hole. And he's flirting with them. That I don't think Vivek really thinks 9/11 was an inside job or that we had federal agents on the planes. What is he saying? What, that this was like entrapment? That the federal agents somehow entrapped the poor terrorists into actually flying the planes into the towers? That we actually were behind it the whole time? We were working in tandem, holding hands like a couple of these Saudi intel officials? Like we were in... What is he... Why? Why would he say U.S. federal agents were on the planes that hit the towers? How dare he say that? Honestly, there's zero evidence of that. That's crazy ass shit that you'd see deep in the rabbit hole on Reddit, Kmele. So for him to link that shit to what we know are legitimate gripes, thus I would suggest to you tarring the GOP as a whole, right? Like this is what the Democrats will use to say these people are lunatics. We can't tell you what a woman is, but they think 9/11 was an inside job, right? It's incredibly cynical and wrong.
I've made a very difficult bed for myself because I try my very best to give people the benefit of the doubt and attribute the best possible motivation to them within reason. And I've met Vivek, and as I heard you say, Megyn, I like him as a person. I think that he is generally quite bright
I'm mad at him,
honest
but I like him.
In a lot of the cases where we're having interactions. I would also concur that this was pretty easy for him to deal with. If you spoke inelegantly and you said it in a way that you didn't mean to say it, intimating certain things, then you own it and you clarify. You don't double down. You don't try to act as though you've been misrepresented. And you most certainly don't call for them to release audio that is likely to make you look worse when it finally arrives, which is why I think him being as bright as I know him to be in general, it's at least possible for me to think that this isn't some sort of well-calibrated strategy, that he is perhaps speaking without having much actual knowledge about what happened here, and that the 2021 release of additional classified information by the Biden administration, giving us a better picture of what, if any, role the Saudis had in it, I would guess that Vivek didn't know anything about that and hadn't actually looked at this carefully before he started talking about it.
He only looked into it after he started getting hit. That's why he admitted he has no evidence that they lied when he made his comments to Alex Stein. He didn't know anything. He did a Google search after he started to get hit and stumbled upon the thing with the Saudis. Like, aha, I'll pin it all on that.
Yeah, so it at least leads me to believe that there is quite a bit more sloppiness as opposed to kind of calculated deviousness. And I will, however, forcefully agree that there is this conspiratorial current in the Republican Party, but it's actually a little worse than that. There is, broadly speaking, an appetite for conspiracism on the left and the right. And I don't need to draw any sort of equivalence there. I don't need to. I think anyone who's been paying attention knows that this is the case, knows that since Donald Trump was running for office, let alone elected, we've been talking about inside job, Manchurian candidate nonsense. And that is still very palpable. The things that people in the different parties are willing to completely ignore for the benefit of their own kind of partisan interests. The fact that we had autonomous zones being declared in the summer of 2020, people seem to have forgotten that kind of thing altogether. So it is a very bizarre, dark time. And I think it actually demands that people who want to be occupants of the highest office in the land are operating in an exceedingly respectable manner. I know that there are benefits to flirting with some of this darker nonsense, but I think Vivek is certainly up to the task of being respectable and above board while hitting hard. And if that's what he wants to do, then that's how he ought to conduct business. No more of this flirtation, no more of this nonsense trying to blame the media. When you've made a mistake, own it and move on. And please give Megyn a call. Let your people talk there. She's got good advice for your campaign.
I'm sure he'll come on. He loves going on every media source, which is to his credit.
He's been on his credit.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I will say, Kmele, I disagree. I disagree with you on one thing. I mean, I actually agree with Matt on this. I do think, the more that I think about this, that it is plotted, because Megyn, you're right, that I always assumed, not assumed, but knew just from practical experience, that conspiracism was kind of a domain of the left. And it was for so long, and they proved themselves again with the Russia nonsense and repeating that in breathless Rachel Maddow episodes, where there's going to be a revelation that Trump was working for the Comintern or something.
The other shoe was about to drop.
It was always about to drop. But there is that bit that's happened on the right more recently. And I think that, when Matt says it's plotted out, or he knows what he's doing, not as if there's some sort of whiteboard, but when you see what happens with RFK, and RFK getting so much purchase on the right, a man who is essentially a leftist, his economic ideas are left-wing. He is a member of the Kennedy family. We don't have to belabor that point. But there's been so much purchase there on the left. And Vivek is actually interesting because he is 39 years old. He is a member of the sort of internet-only generation. Mike Pence is not. And he understands that when what I called along, probably a couple months ago, on the Fifth Column, the veification of politics. And the veification of politics was, they are doing this. Never defined who it is. They lied to you. Who lied to you? Well, they did. I mean, there were some people in the military hierarchy that did not want it to come out that Pat Tillman was killed by friendly fire because he was a heroic guy who signed up for the military and threw away an enormous NFL contract. And, the Jessica Lynch story, all of that stuff, it came out very quickly, and it was very quickly debunked. And it's so funny because now in this version, populism kind of demands a certain conspiracy instinct to it. And in this version of the Republican Party, young people don't remember that everybody on the right, including, most of the people on stage, were defending the Bush administration during the 2000s, during the Iraq War. But now it's de rigueur that you get on stage and you say, the Iraq War was the biggest foreign policy disaster in American history. You denounce the Bushism in the past. And so it's a very, very interesting transition from the left doing that and talking about Pat Tillman and weapons of mass destruction to people very commonly doing this on the right. And I'm not saying they're totally wrong, but I think the instinct is very much an internet one, because it does get a lot of short-term gain. Kmele said there is a gain. I think he's right, but I think it's short-term. I don't think that in the long-term way, it is a good strategy to play footsie with these people because they are fucking nuts.
Yeah, I agree. Like this is you're on your way to lizard people. You are on the road to lizard people if you go down these lanes. And that's part of what I see as my job, is to keep a tether to the truth, to call out the lies that we're being told by the government when it's happening, to stay objective enough that you can see them, but also objective enough that you can see when Republicans are bullshitting us too. And Vivek is bullshitting us. And he's bullshitting us not just about, pilots, American federal agents on the planes, but about why now he's taking fire for these comments. He's trying to play a card out of the Trump deck, where he's like, it is coming from me because I'm an outsider. Listen to this. This is further from the interview on CNN last night, trying to explain why he's being so unfairly attacked for these comments. Sot 3.
I know this game comes up, Caitlin, every time there's an outsider who comes in. I am guilty as charged that I do not follow the establishment super PAC donor-approved script on these questions, but I am speaking truth, grounded in fact, at every step of the way. And that's what's really elicited something of an anaphylactic reaction of the kind we saw in 2016 against a different candidate. But this time I'm going to be grounded in principles and conviction, not just vengeance and grievance, which is exactly how we will reunite this country.
Okay, so I love the dig at Trump at the end there. Like the only reason he has any following whatsoever is because he's attracted some faction of the Trump fans who are like, okay, he sounds kind of like Trump. He's not going to attack Trump. There's some who aren't on the Trump team, but he's got a lot of Trump supporters who are open-minded to him. But they got to get the Trump dig in there at the end while trying to claim he's the new Trump. He's the outsider. That's why he's getting attacked. No, that's not why. It's not because you're an outsider. It's because of what you actually said. And this isn't the first time. Okay, the Washington Examiner had a piece yesterday that talked about how this is a pattern with Vivek, where I'll give you an example from the piece. They say, all right, the candidate repeatedly alleged in interviews that the first time he ever voted in an election was in 2020 for Trump, though then he later admitted to the Washington Examiner that he actually had voted in 2004. And the Washington Examiner had raised that with him because they went and found election records in Ohio showing him voting in 2004. He, according to the Washington Examiner, told the Examiner over the phone when it brought the voting discrepancy to his attention, I appreciate you smoking that out for me. That actually was very useful. But then he went online and posted, this is the most false and intentionally deceitful headline of the campaign so far about the Washington Examiner report, right? So it wasn't false. It wasn't intentionally deceitful. Behind the scenes, he thanked them for the clarification, and he had said something that wasn't true. Negative dings on credit reports happen to all sorts of people from all different socioeconomic backgrounds. Understanding the credit landscape can be really tough, and spending the time to dispute and then repair these so-called dings can be a full-time job. I mean, good luck to you. If you have kids, you have your own 9-to-5 job. For starters, you're going to have to deal with 3 separate credit bureaus. It's just a massive headache. It's also a common misconception that people with poor credit scores are just those who simply don't pay their credit card bills. These actually can be hardworking people who are negatively affected by divorce, identity theft, medical debt, student loans, and just don't have the time or the energy to fix it. But if you don't address negative credit items, they can haunt you for years to come. And when it counts the most, right? Like when it's time to get a mortgage at a competitive rate, those are high stakes. You don't want it to get screwed up. And we know that being relegated to the status of renter versus homeowner is a huge obstacle people face in trying to move their family up the economic class hierarchy over the course of their lifetime. The good news is that our new sponsor, Lexington Law, would like to help you if you are dealing with this problem. Go to lexingtonlaw.com. Start today with a free consultation and review. Tell them I, Megyn Kelly, sent you at lexingtonlaw.com. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.